Hello everyone, my name is Joshua from Heretic Apologetics. Today, we're continuing our series on defending the real presence of the Eucharist, this time exploring how Jesus' miraculous feeding of the 5,000 supports the belief in the real presence. This underappreciated passage connects almost all the biblical passages about the Eucharist. In this miracle, the only one recorded in all four Gospels, Jesus' actions point to the Last Supper and the Eucharist. Now, before we start, I would like to clarify that this passage does not by itself prove the real presence, but only supports it cumulatively. John's account of this miracle says, Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. Matthew's account says that Jesus, taking the 5 loaves, looked up to heaven and blessed, and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples. Now, hopefully, this should remind you of the Last Supper. Matthew's account of the Last Supper says that Jesus took bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took a chalice, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you." Notice how in both the feeding of the 5,000 and the Last Supper, Jesus takes bread, blessed it, gave thanks, and gave it to his disciples. A little Easter egg. The verb for to give thanks in both the Last Supper and the feeding of the 5,000 is Eucharistio, from which we get the word Eucharist, or Thanksgiving. I'm not done yet. You may recognize this chapter, John 6, because very soon after the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus gives the Bread of Life discourse, likely the best scriptural passage for the real presence. In fact, the feeding of the 5,000 is what puts in motion the Bread of Life discourse. After the feeding of the 5,000, the people find Jesus again, seeking more bread. As Jesus says, they seek him not because they saw signs, but because they had their fill of the loaves. They seek more bread, but Jesus gives them something better, the bread of eternal life. Just like the multiplied bread that not only was enough, but had surplus after people had eaten, the bread of eternal life endures to eternal life, causing one to never hunger again. However, Jesus still uses the terms of bread and food when speaking of this bread of eternal life, implying that Jesus is speaking of something physical, tangible, something not just abstract, just like the bread he multiplied. In summary, the feeding of the 5,000's use of physical bread sets the stage for interpreting John 6 and the Last Supper as literal. I hope you have enjoyed this video and that, if you disagree with anything I have said, please explain reasons why in the comments below. This is Heretic Apologetics. God love you all.